Nothing in the outer world interfering. Just finding that state of really who we truly are. That son, daughter of the great light. So we relax. Breathe in as we remember the great need of our world. And we seek to still our minds so that we come into a place of peace and deep stillness, drawing closer to God in prayer. So let us open our hearts to the power, wisdom, and love of God. By the Christ light and love in our hearts, we call to the great angels of the Christ star circle, and being still, we feel their presence and their power. And now with all the will of our minds, with all the love of our deepest hearts, we send forth the light. We send it forth as a great star of light, a blazing star, a star of the Christ love, lifting all hearts into the eternal heart of God. By all the power of Christ within our hearts, we send forth the light to the world. We hold our beautiful planet and the healing light of the Christ star, and we hold within this healing ray the soil, the waters of the earth, the air, and all of nature, especially the human and the animal kingdoms. We hold in the heart of Christ the soul of the Americas, the soul of all the peoples of the nations of the Americas. May the light of the Christ star shine through the hearts and the minds of all the people of the Americas to bring healing to mankind and a deep reverence for all life. And now let us hold within this great image of the Christ star anyone known to us personally who may be in need of help or healing. We just see them perfect, shining in the light. And we thank thee, Lord, for your presence and the blessing of your healing grace upon these your family.
Good morning. I'm told I have to speak up more. It sounds really loud from up here, but if somebody is too loud, just give me the home signal. Anyway, I'm told that this is Earth Healing Sunday, and let us open our hearts to the Christ's power, wisdom, and love, as together we call upon the angels of Earth Healing to draw close as we come into the soft radiance of this love, and as we focus and hold the healing light of the Christ star over our beloved Mother Earth. Let us do our utmost to make this a saner and a more healthy planet for her and for all who are inhabiting it. So let's just spend a few quiet moments and see the earth come back into the radiance that it once had as we become more and more stewards of her. With hearts full of love and gratitude, we give our grateful thanks. Amen. Jane has selected a reading by the founder of the White Eagle Lodge, Grace Cook, also known as Vanessa, and she was the channel for White Eagle. It's entitled The Holy Mother. In the midst of far distant time, humanity first learned to worship God as the Mother, the giver of life and the source for the continuation of life. Because without the Mother, life would of itself become extinct. The reproductive powers throughout nature, and especially in animals and in human beings, were venerated as the Creator made manifest. So long as female power and influence were in the ascendancy, the creative force was regarded as embodying the principles of the female nature. Later, however, when woman's power waned and man became supreme, the God idea began gradually to assume the male characteristics and attributes. Nothing, however, alters the fact that the female was first thought of as the visible organic unit within whom was contained the exclusive creative power. For women's functions in those days were accounted as of more importance than those of man, and God was more often worshipped under a female form. To the universal mother, and to her as to no other divinity since worshipped by mankind, was offered a spontaneity of devotion and a willing acknowledgement of dependence. The children of Mother Earth met in the open air.
Spider. Oh, a big spider. Mother.
Why don't you get another seed? No problem. Maybe you even want to get further away, Monica. Yeah. Evacuate the area. All right. Yeah.
He's either son or it's a dog. Sorry.
Another guess. Okay, good.
He's forgiven.
All right, here we go. All right, so she was conceived as a beneficent and all-wise deity, a tender and loving parent. Arising out of this, in the process of time, the heavens, bodily and spiritual, came to be worshipped under the form of a mother and her child, this being the highest expression of a creator which the human mind was able to conceive. The fact has been observed that the Om was originally a female deity. In yogic practice, the Great Mother, or Kundalini, was worshipped as the source of all light and wisdom, being likened to the sleeping serpent which, at last awakened to activity, brings to man all knowledge and divine illumination. God, the Mother, from long ages past and even up to the present day, has been worshipped as the Holy Mother, and from antiquity has been portrayed with the Holy Child in her arms. Okay. Some of the ancient standing stones, both in Britain and elsewhere, although very badly weathered, depict the woman goddess holding her babe. Mary, the mother of Jesus, thus becomes a continuation of the belief and the worship of the ancients. Thus, the earliest conception of God, the symbol of the mother and child, has evolved in man's expanding spiritual consciousness into a more lovely picture of the Madonna with the Christ child. It may well be asked, is this merely a religious symbol, or is there such a heavenly being as a Holy Mother, the Mother of the world? If this is so, then how does she appear? Is she a living personality, and can her presence and her influence be felt on earth? We will answer the last question first. There have been many seers and visionaries who claim to have seen the Holy Mother. Notably amongst them is Bernadette, the French young girl whose vision of Our Lady was overwhelmingly and convincingly not only to the seer herself, but to many people, including church dignitaries who witnessed the miraculous healing, and the reigning Queen and King of France, whose child was also cured of disease by the waters of Lourdes. And I just want to make an aside here, because I have been at Lourdes, and if you have a chance sometime to go there, it is a magnificent pilgrimage site. You'll see tens of thousands of people on any given day, and it's powerful, still to this day. It was because Bernadette saw the Divine Mother in the grotto at Lourdes and strictly obeyed her guidance that the healing waters there commenced to flow, and have continued ever since that time, with the result that great numbers of sick, lame, and blind have been healed and are still being healed through the appearance of Our Lady to Bernadette. The presence of the Holy Mother has often been felt by women during the birth of their babes, and she is also present at the time of death, being both the mother of birth and death. Her spirit is universal. She comes to all her children who need her, but especially to women because of their particular service of motherhood. She is known to have appeared to women throughout the early Christian era, the story of Mary, the mother of Jesus, being symbolical and mystical at the same time universal. The great mother of life, and she represents the infinite spirit, the womb from which humanity is born. The Holy Mother is all-enfolding love, is all wisdom, divine intelligence, and power. It has been said that the Mother is faith from which is born Christ, the light in the heart of humanity. Her appearance is not infrequent to those who have knowledge of her. She comes as the spirit of the beautiful and the perfect woman. She is woman made perfect, even as Christ is man made perfect. As you conceive the attributes, the qualities of the Christ in a man, so does the Holy Mother manifest as personality in the perfected form, beauty, and the attributes of a divine mother. To each nationality she appears as one of their own race. Therefore, to a European she will appear as such very beautiful in face and form, clothed in the softest white flowing robes with an overcape of heavenly Madonna blue. An aura of light containing all the softest colors of the spectrum radiates from her, together with a subtle sweet perfume of roses. She is beautiful beyond compare. She is universal spirit, which takes the form of a divine mother to come close, very, very close to all the children on earth, to help them, comfort them in time of sorrow, bitterness, and loneliness, as well as to add to their joy in times of happiness. She comes in human form because it is the easiest way to approach her children on earth, and through her human divine personality, she reaches right down into the very depth of the human heart. We all yearn for a mother's love, a mother's understanding, and in her, the Holy Mother, we find the comfort and deep, deep spiritual peace and joy, which is the culmination of life and happiness.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I chose that second hymn because it's one that unites our deepest divisions in the world, is what causes the chaos that we find ourselves in at this moment.
People thinking they're separate according to their gender or their race or their place of birth or their religious views, all separation. And it comes a time that none of that will be sorted unless we realize that we are indeed all one. One people, one humanity, some say one group soul. Doesn't actually matter, but once we start working together, we'll find a great abundance on the earth once again. It has come, this whole separation business, as we have become more intellectually inclined. We think a great deal, and as we've been instructed, it is the mind that separates, it's the heart that unites us. So when we go into the heart, it's just like, smelling a rose. You don't smell a rose with your mind. You immediately go into the heart, and there it is you feel. And it is really the feeling nature of the mother that we celebrate. It is said that the soul life, the soul is feminine because it feels. And from our feeling, then we begin to think. But if we think with the heart, we'll find a whole different expression coming onto the earth. Now, years ago, and I hope none of you were here in May of 2015, because I have drawn for a little bit of what I spoke about then, the celebration of Mother's Day. It was first celebrated in 1908 when an Anna Jarvis held a memorial for her mother in Grafton, West Virginia. Her campaign was to make a Mother's Day a recognized holiday in the US. She wanted to honor her own mother, the person who's done more for you than anyone else in the world. So President Woodrow Wilson inaugurated this on May the 9th, 1914, exactly 107 years ago today. Now the word mother has a far deeper connotation in life than those alone who bear children into the world, because it's a quality of the Godhead, the warm and all-enfolding, gentle, nurturing side of the deity. Just as an earthly mother nurtures her children, so in a far greater capacity does the beautiful, divine, feminine light of God flow through us all, yet most of the time we don't recognize it. We see now the need for a resurgence of this feminine influence, so needed in the world, so very long suppressed, but the need for balance is paramount. We all have within us the gift of the feminine influence, whether we find ourselves in a masculine or a feminine body. The effort and practice of learning to balance these corresponding energies while on earth encompasses our journey throughout life. We don't need to get too caught up in gender, for actually the divine feminine and corresponding energy of the masculine are actually flows or frequencies of light, which we all contain. The active, dynamic flow of the golden light we associate with the male aspect, the sun, light, and that beautifully silvery green light, silvery light, we associate with the female, the silvery blue light, with all the beautiful ethereal gentleness that it contains. And it's by balancing these two energies that we may reflect the perfect parent. That word parent. There are probably few occupations that consume more time, effort, and absolute dedication than that of a parent, whether male or female. It's probably true that we may more fully appreciate our mothers when we're long out of the nest and perhaps have children of our own. Then a whole new level of respect and appreciation is born. We might look at our own parents and see where the job they did could have been done in a different way. Perhaps our own growing up was difficult and painful. It can be helpful to remember that before we're born into this present life, we actually have a part in choosing our parents. So often this is deeply linked in our own karma, or sowing and reaping. What do we need to learn from one another? Our teacher tells us that it's usually the parent who is to learn from the child, perhaps the reverse of what we might think. I know I did. I learned my most significant lessons in my life from my children. It wasn't easy for either of us, but we made it. We come to teach each other, never to regret our mistakes or accuse anyone for theirs, but to simply have the greatness of heart to learn from them. Motherhood is never about things. It's about being there and loving whatever happens, however the child or parent may react. It's about withholding things that we know will not be in the best interests of a child, just as our divine parent withholds things for our highest good, even though we may kick against that withholding. I want to tell you a story that I first read years ago in a book called Listening is an Act of Love. You ever thought about this? When we listen to one another, we're giving our absolute and full attention to the other person. Just as if the Master came into our presence, he would listen to every word with rapt attention to what we are saying. Ideally, a mother listens to the point of view of her child and watches that child express him or herself and grow, even when that child absolutely disagrees with what the mother may be saying, which is usually the case. Motherhood is about dedication, standing by her children and giving and giving and giving. And here's the story I'd like to share. It's a true story of a little girl named Cynthia. She lived way far out in the country, and the rest of the children in her kindergarten class came from a nearby town in North Carolina, and were infinitely better off, certainly financially, than she was. She felt everyone else in the class was rich, and so she felt very intimidated. She had a lovely kindergarten teacher named Mrs. White, who was very loving and considerate, and one day she gave the children a project in which they could all participate. What she told them was, go home, find something that has to do with a farm or farm animal or a barn. Bring it to class tomorrow, and we will all create a farmyard scene together. The class was all very excited about it, and when Cynthia got home, as children will do, Cynthia played outside until dark, quite forgetting the assignment. Her mother returned from work that evening, and then suddenly Cynthia remembered and said, oh, Mom, I've got to get a cow or a hoe or a stuffed animal for the barn project at school. She and her mother looked all over the house, searched high and low. She didn't even have a plastic horse. So she cried, knowing she'd have to go to school with nothing to contribute to the project. The stores were closed, and she lived in rural Appalachia, where there were no Walmarts open at all hours. Her mother mentioned she needed to be more responsible so that they could have planned ahead. Unfortunately, she'd cried herself to sleep. Now, the next morning, Cynthia came downstairs. Her mother would leave breakfast for her and her sister, since she had to leave for work before dawn. An amazing sight greeted her, and I quote now, I went downstairs, and sitting on the kitchen table was a barn made out of notebook paper. She'd just taken plain notebook paper and folded it. She'd folded the walls, folded the roof, folded the doors that opened so horses could go in and out. She had shutters on the windows. She had little steps that went up to the loft, and it was just sitting there. It was like magic. I looked at it. There wasn't even a staple in it. There was no tape. She had just folded a barn for me. So you can imagine my excitement, she said, as her sister took her to school. The other kids had store-bought plastic farm animals, and everyone was so amazed at my barn. I felt like the most special kid in class. Cynthia said, I had no idea where my mother learned to do such a thing. I had no idea how long it took her. Did she stay up all night, or how she figured out how to make that bath. It just made me a very happy little girl. And I was very popular that day in school. I felt like a queen. Most of all, I knew that my mother really cared about me, even when I saw so little of her. Isn't it always the small things that we do for one another that make the difference in life? Just being thoughtful, just being caring, even if we're not drawn to a particular person, just being decent, courteous. It doesn't take too much to do that. Now, in the greater picture, we talk about Mother Earth, we talk about Mother Nature. You know, even when ships are christened, they're usually a feminine name. Perhaps it's because they house a lot of young sailors who need a great mothership to keep them safe. This beautiful mother spirit flows through all life. You just have to go outside and see this exquisite expression of creation. How, if given the freedom of all the natural world, it works in harmony. If we give freedom to each other, we allow for each individual to be free. Just as a mother loves her child, regardless of the way that child develops, or perhaps how painful the relationship might have been. I love that quote from Khalil Gibran. Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. It is the bitter potion by which the physician within you heals your sick self. Therefore, trust the physician and drink his remedy in silence and tranquility. The mother who cares for her children in the right way allows them to develop wings and to fly. And then after that, we become friends and equals in this journey of life. So our teacher said, it's hard to describe in earthly language the lovely mother spirit as she really is. But to help you to become aware of her, we ask you all to try to develop your sense of feeling. Feeling for beauty and light and colour, beauty of nature, beauty of human nature. And try to feel the happiness and sweetness, purity of a baby, which can touch the human heart as nothing else. So could we define this most elusive quality as the spirit of motherhood? One, regardless of the form in which they find themselves, learns to love, to nurture, to tenderly watch over, and to have that quality of generosity so deep in their heart. It just simply loves. Without separation, without judgment, without criticism. Because it is in this unity that our family of people in the world will come together. So in our communion, which is simply union with God, union with the light, union however one perceives of the purity and beauty that each one of us have been given in our hearts, resident and there, a flame ready to be fanned and to reach out to every other. So let us take a moment to give thanks for all the experiences in our lives that have made us who we are. And it will be the difficult and painful ones that has honed that sweet nature within us. To understand is to grow. To grow is to be able to shine the light. So let us hold in the heart of this temple
take each moment and live